Hey, welcome back. I'm Luminous Ra, and today we are going to dive deep into a discussion. But before we do, I want to go ahead and clean the energy in the air so that we get all the divine messages that we're looking for. As I reflect on the last video that I posted, I realized that I didn't just wake up one day and decide to be feminine. I wasn't lighting candles or wearing silk robes and posting about soft life aesthetic. I was a mom, tired, angry, achieving, and broken. I had a to-do list longer than my healing capacity. I wanted peace, but I didn't know how to give it to myself for real. So this video isn't necessarily a guide to femininity. It's the story of how I stumbled into it, accidentally, by surrendering to something. If you've ever been lost in survival mode, chasing healing but still stuck, if you've ever confused rest with laziness, if you've ever been scared to feel, then this video is made for you. Let me tell you about how I accidentally fell into my femininity and why that accident not only transformed my life, but saved it as well. I thought I was in a healing journey because I wanted to feel better. I wanted to be better. I wanted to show up better. And I knew that meant that I needed to release the trauma that I was holding, find forgiveness, and just be better. But it was easier to hate the person that I was, to hate the situations that I came from, and to hate the faces that facilitated the trauma that I endured. And in trying to be good, it was really hard to force that anger down, because I felt like that's what I needed to do. I needed to cage in the aspects of me that didn't look pristine, healthy, or vibrant. But in all actuality, what that did was make me burst at the seams. I wasn't able to be a good person while avoiding and looking at all of the pain that I had and looking at the roots of why I ended up the way I was in the first place, why I reacted to people the way I did, why I chose the acquaintance that I did. Working through those aspects and figuring out exactly how to release all of that stuff, it was a challenge because I was still a mother. I still had ambitions. I still had a lot of healing to do. And I feel like the biggest obstacle that I had was trying to be a better person, but also feeling guilty about putting myself first. It wasn't easy to put myself first without carrying the guilt that came along with it. I believe that success meant to hold it all together, to make my life look like the dream life that I wanted to have in terms of healing, in terms of being a good mother, in terms of being a good person, and trying to fit a mold that wasn't set for me. The ideal image of what I thought was good wasn't who I was born to be. I was born to be vibrant. I was born to speak my mind. I was born to be somewhat of a fighter and fight against things that socially might be acceptable, but spiritually I knew it wasn't. I didn't realize that the form that I held was the very form that was holding me back from the healing and the person that I wanted to be. How many times have you tried to change while also holding on to the very thing keeping you from change? A lot of that frustration we feel, that tug of war that we feel, is the simple fact that we're not willing to let go of the things that we need to let go in order to be the person that we're meant to be. We're not able to let go of the people that we claim that we love and we think we love and we feel like we love, and they don't show up the way we need them to show up to feel the reciprocation of the love that we give. I was trying to fit the role of the healed version of me, but I hadn't met the real me yet. And in order to do that, I couldn't force myself to fit into the structure that I thought was perfect. I had to let go of the structure. I had to look a mess, be a mess, and let everything fall apart in order to finally find myself. And with the roles that society gives us, with everything that people tell us, with the echoes of the people's voices that have restrained us, we tell ourselves and hold ourselves to this certain level that in the end up harming us. And I saw that a lot as a mother. I was trying to love my son and love myself, but every time I tried to choose me, I felt guilty. All the times you know you need to choose yourself, but when you think about you up against the person that you know you love, you will choose their emotional body and not wanting to offend them in order to prove your love to them. But what does that mean for you? What does that mean for the version of you that's looking for the reciprocation of love? It means that you tell yourself through your own actions that you don't deserve the love, that you don't deserve basic kindness from yourself. Many of us don't want to focus on what it is we need to look at in order to heal and to really look at the situation, the person, ourselves, and everything, because we start to get angry and we leave the emotion of anger there. We don't go any further, any deeper than the emotional of anger. We don't try to search and figure out, why are we angry? What are we saying to ourselves when we explain these situations to other people? We're telling someone that this person did X to us, but we don't realize what we're actually saying. And what we're actually saying is, I gave false hope and false trust to this individual to come in and have some sort of accountability for their own actions, even though they've shown me over and over again that they have none. And because I let them in, I'm a good person. Instead of reframing that belief and thinking, why did I allow them to come near me at all? Why am I allowing my emotional body that I feel when I think about this person or when I think about what we've been through to overshadow the love and respect that I have for myself? Many times in reflecting, thinking about the people that have been a part of this hurt and this pain that I've been feeling, I always thought that they were the ones afflicting that pain on me. And I never thought about where it all began. And it started with me allowing them to afflict that pain, by allowing them to come into my space, by not having the boundaries set for myself to realize once they come into my being and they behave exactly as they are, I need to know to not be offended by it. I need to not take it personal. This is a reflection of them, not myself. And that's something that's very challenging when you have not gone through your own emotional body, because you feel all of these emotions and it's so overwhelming that you just want to react. And that's what healing does. It dials back the reaction. It gives you a place and a space where you can find some peace and be settled and be calm. And those characteristics are the characteristics that we associate with being feminine. Femininity is not an energy that is reactive. Why? Because it has found peace. And when you grow up in an environment or around individuals that are always disrupting your peace and creating this chaotic space and making it something that it's pretty normal, that's when it shows that you're not calibrated correctly. Your norm is highly chaotic to your body, to your spirit, to your being, and being peaceful. And that's why a lot of times when a lot of people do find peace, they don't think that they're chaotic, but they think that they're bored because it doesn't feel right. They go back to looking for those connections where they finally felt something. And when they feel something, it feels frustrating. It feels angry, but it feels strong. So they misassociate that energy with love. Are you misassociating that energy with love? In reflection, I had to realize I didn't hate them for hurting me. I hated that I was still living by the rules that they gave me. I was still believing that I had to have this performative niceness, that I had to show up a certain type of way to show my loyalty. I needed to show my loyalty to myself, and anyone that was against that was what I would like to call a red flag. And if they were a red flag, then birds of a feather flock together. I was one too. I would often think I just needed people like me to love me and give to me as much as I gave to them. I just needed somebody that understood me. I just needed somebody that would appreciate what I do and they can actually see me for me when I wasn't giving it to myself. What aspect of you are you begging people to see within you that you're not even giving to yourself? You don't love and appreciate yourself. You don't show up for yourself. You don't value yourself. And it doesn't make a lot of sense when you're so focused on looking at what others are doing in reaction to you, not having the boundary to know what places you belong and what places you don't. Who is deserving of your energy? Let's actually go deep into that. Who is deserving of your energy? If that triggers you in some type of way where you feel inferior to even ask that question, people have to be deserving to be in your energy. That doesn't make you sedity. That doesn't make you uppity. It doesn't make you snooty or a bad person. To know that the people that experience you need to be deserving to be in your energy and around you. You can't start swaying or get soft and say, well, I love this person and they did this to me. You're convincing yourself to be in situations that are harmful to your nervous system. Think about that. If you were your own parent and you allowed yourself to be in areas where you know that your inner child will be harmed, you would look at that person as a bad parent, but you don't see yourself as a facilitator of allowing a lot of these situations to transpire. And when you think about people hurting you, why are they able to hurt you? What about what they're saying or what they're doing is able to get to you so deeply? It's very challenging to forgive people that you feel broke you, when really you have to give yourself forgiveness for breaking you. You've talked yourself into a lot of situations where you entertain the wrong audience when they've shown you over and over again that they're not good for your nervous system. Before I could worry about falling into my femininity, I had to first fight against hating myself. Because really, that's how I was showing up. It didn't matter how well I did my hair or my makeup. It didn't matter how good my clothes were, whether I ironed them or pressed them. It didn't matter how good my job was. It didn't matter how educated I was. What mattered was I was operating like my own personal op. I was putting myself in situations where I would get a whisper that that was not where I needed to be. And I'm sure you get plenty of whispers and you still go to the party, you still go to that person's house, you still befriend these people, and you will fight tooth and nail not to break these relationships. Who are you fighting against? Because you may think that you're fighting against the people that are telling you that these people aren't good for you, but really you're fighting against the better judgment of yourself. You're fighting yourself to continue to be hurt, to continue to not see exactly what's transpiring in front of you. And the most important reflection is yours, not theirs. The beautiful thing about healing is when you start to open up and see exactly what's going on, you can see the whole vision. You just don't know how to move into position. It's almost like your body won't allow you to go in the direction that you need to go. You can see the entire plan and you don't know how to execute it step by step. Now, for me personally, I know that I'm neurodivergent, so it's a little bit more challenging for me to be able to do the steps. It takes a lot more effort and energy in order to move and do the thing. And if you add trauma on top of that, it's 10 times harder. Because now I have to battle against knowing what the plan is, but also feeling frustrated with myself about not making the moves, while also playing the echoes of people's voices in my head telling me that I can't do this and I can't do that, and that is not who I'm meant to be. I had to get rid of all of these beliefs and calm my mind and my mental space down before I could even make any moves to go through the path that was meant for my future. If you have the thought process that this is what you want, if that idea pops up in your head, and you have something within your body that says no or gets agitated, that is not your gut instinct. That is not your intuition. And that feeling isn't right. What's right is the idea that you wanted to go through with this process. And what's holding you back is the familiar echoes and essence, emotions of your trauma trying to hold you into the same path and timeline that you're in. If you want to change your life, you have to change listening to that inner feeling, to that gut feeling, to those butterflies. You have to stop allowing the nervousness that you experience when you want to embark on something new to hold you back and make you rethink the process, or make you think that you have to plan this entire process out for it to be successful. It's not about success. It's about experience. And that is something that is more important than anything else. A lot of times, perfection is the very thing that's keeping us away from the journey. And a lot of times, what we place at that finish line is actually not what we need. It's not what we really want. And when we get something else as a result of shifting our beliefs and shifting our timeline, that's when we see that we're more blessed with that thing than we were with the thing that we thought we needed. Walking away and walking into the thing that scares the crap out of you is the best gift that you could ever give yourself, because you give yourself the opportunity of getting to know who you really are. The thing that we're scared of can be a simple idea. For instance, being gentle with yourself. I bet some of you believe that being gentle with yourself equates to being lazy. You get agitated when you see someone else being gentle with themselves, when you see someone else resting and you're choosing to work hard. Who told you to work hard? Do you always need to work hard in order to feel valuable? Is that something that you exhibit often? Maybe that's something that you have to take a look at. We have these relationships that crumble, and even though they crumble because maybe the person doesn't show up in their best light, right? We have to also look at the fact that we align to that person and that energy. What about us could have shifted things and been a little bit different? Not to save the relationship or the experience, but just so that we could have a different outcome in this experience. Just so that we can leave this experience still balanced and mentally stable or emotionally stable. Because we allow people to get into our head and mold our belief system into believing that the things that are actually good for us aren't dangerous, that is the main reason why we hold ourselves back. You have to stop doing that. In order to have real change, you have to go past your belief system. Even when you think you're not ready, whatever scares you, when you are embarking on your healing, when you're embarking on this journey of discovering another version of yourself, you have to go through that in courage. Having courage isn't just because you know that you're going to succeed. Having courage is going through the door, even though you don't know whether you're going to fall flat on your face or not. And what is the worst that could happen? You are redefining your brand, and sometimes that is an ugly process. Sometimes it's not perfect. Sometimes people care and most times they don't. If you think about it, how important do you think you are that people are always paying attention to you? Most people don't care. The only people that care and laugh and talk about you are the people that don't have the courage and the light that you do. They're jealous of you because they feel that they're lacking something, and that insecurity is brewing something deeper within them. They're going to put all of their might and energy to try to make you feel like you can't go past where they are, because there's one thing that they're right about. You have it in you, and they've already given up. So now it's time to step up into your essence so that you can go through the healing process and discover an aspect of self that is feminine. A lot of times we try to walk through that femininity door, pastel and pinks, and we don't realize, depending on where you are, depending on how traumatized you are, what type of mindset and background you've come from, what type of things you had to unravel in order to really step into the essence of who you truly are, it gets kind of dark looking at yourself. And that's because you've taken this long to shine light on who you are. It's about time that you stand up and have courage to really take a look at yourself and see who you are. And then when you look at who you are and you start to see aspects of yourself that mirror aspects of people that you know you don't like, or behaviors that you know you dislike, you have to start becoming okay with how you have shown up in the past, even when it wasn't the most prettiest version of you. You can glam yourself up all you want to, but when it's time to really take a look at who you are and learn how to love the beauty that is right there in all of its imperfection, that is when the real breakdown happens, because you always come out stronger. When you aren't in an area or an environment where expressing your emotions and honoring how you feel and honoring rest is not something that is rewarded, you don't have the words or the knowledge to know how you're feeling. And a lot of people tell you there's power in calling it out, but sometimes that also delays the process of unraveling the emotion. There was a time that I was feeling such an intense emotion and I really didn't know why. I wasn't sure whether it was a phase of my menstrual cycle. I wasn't sure if I had healed something so deeply but had no memory to attach to this emotion. And I was very unfamiliar with this emotion, but I knew that it was in a range of sadness and it was very heavy. The first thing that popped up in my head, I needed to go for a walk. I just knew that I had to sit with that emotion, and I would rather walk in that emotion than just sit in it and let it fester and brew and feel like this heavy weight over me. So I took this walk, and all of a sudden I began to sob. And while it didn't make sense to me, because I was not used to honoring my emotions, I was not used to crying for what seemed like nothing, but I allowed myself that space to allow the tears to fall, to allow the sobbing to happen, and to not look around and see if anybody was watching me. It was none of their business. It was only my business. I took a really long walk and I cried for as long as I needed to, and I walked for as long as I needed to. And when I finally got home, I felt relieved. Even though that emotion still lingered, I felt like I had released a lot of that emotion that was trapped inside of me. And I didn't need to spend time or mental energy in trying to figure out why I was having this emotional outbreak. I just honored it. How many times have we allowed people to say that we're crazy or we're overreacting or how we feel is not congruent with the situation? And it doesn't stop there. We take the energy, we take those words, and we make it a belief. So we begin to tell ourselves this information. We begin to hold ourselves back because we don't want to be judged and we want to fit in. And this is the reason why it's not conducive to fit in, because you are wired differently than someone else. And someone else's strength may just be a false mask. Them holding back their emotions, them holding back their tears, them not trying to discover why they feel the way they feel, trying to come across as stoic without doing the inner work, is the very thing that is going to force them to crash and burn at some point. The dam is going to fill up, and eventually, if you don't allow it to release what it needs to release, it's going to break and it's going to get really messy. You have to do better in showing up for yourself and allowing yourself the space to be able to feel, irregardless of what anybody says to you. No one else's voice should outshine or be louder than your own. Courage for the unknown, surrendering into that unknown, is the most important thing that you can do for yourself. I had to allow God to lead me into a situation that I prior wouldn't have been able to trust. I wasn't able to trust myself to make the best decision for me, especially if it looked messy, especially if it looked vulnerable, and vulnerability equated weakness. I had to stop telling myself things that were harming me. And in trusting the divine and following this path, this unknown path, this path that hurt, this path that didn't look dainty and sweet, I learned how to follow the lead of the divine. Before I could allow anyone else to lead me, I had to first trust that I was going to follow the proper energy to lead. And because I was able to find that in the divine, it made me much wiser when it came to being able to be led by another person, even if it was myself. I am leading myself into healing and recovering, and I need to trust myself in that process. And so do you. You have to be able to trust yourself to lead yourself into healing and recovery. When you begin to align to that mindset, that is when you're able to trust so much more. If you think that trust is weakness and you shut yourself off to everyone, then you won't be able to trust yourself either. You shut trust off completely, not just for specific people and individuals. Your heart is closed and it's time to open it. I know that you want to do the right thing and lean in and trust. There's another truth in that you have to say and be honest with yourself that you're angry. And you're not just angry at a person or yourself, you're angry at God as well. You're frustrated that you can't trust yourself. You're frustrated that you haven't been able to make the right decisions. And you're frustrated that you don't know how to reach for the divine. You don't know how to feel the divine. And these are the reasons why I tell you, you have to open up your heart. You have to honor and allow the sadness and the anger and all of that stuff to come to the surface, even if it's messy. Because that is where you will meet the divine. That's where you'll meet yourself. Not being able to trust and feeling angry, but not wanting to face that anger because you don't want to feel like a bad person and you don't want to feel like an atheist. You don't want to question whether God is really there, but you know that question pops up. You know that you don't feel the divine. You know that you feel like you're one of the lost ones. You're one of the ones that God doesn't love or take care of because you have created this crazy border and boundary all around you where no one can reach you. You've dug yourself into this deep hole and called it safety. But in all actuality, you're running. You're running very far away from the divine. And no matter how far you run, the divine is still going to get to you, but it's up to you to allow yourself to open up and receive that. I may not have known what the labels were to how I was feeling, but I knew that I was very angry with the divine. I was angry with how life was going. I was angry that I didn't understand how to love myself and how to show up for myself and how to be the person that I knew that I could be. I felt like I was reaching in a thin air and not being able to grasp anything. That is where I allowed myself to release and to be honest with how I felt and the shame that came with being honest with allowing myself to be who I was. I just made friends with it all. It was just my truth. And my truth was pretty ugly to me, but I had to get used to allowing myself to just feel and release and allow the divine to lead me, even without being able to label how I felt. And that's truly when healing finally started. You know that saying, you don't want to be God's strongest soldier this year? A lot of people feel like God's abandoned child. That's so real, and I don't feel like a lot of people talk about that. We don't talk about feeling abandoned by the divine and thinking, how could my life be like this? And how could these people do this to me? And there's a divine, there's a God. How can all of this bad stuff happen, right? But it's only a matter of shifting your perspective and rewiring your belief system and who you are and how you show up. The second that you open up to the divine and the second that you truly, deeply, really trust the divine to lead you, even though you're terrified and you don't know whether the directions that you're being led into is even the right direction. And it's amazing to see people lead themselves astray so much, thinking that they're protecting themselves, that when they finally start to show up for themselves, they mistrust every decision that they have and they have to make for themselves. It doesn't make it any better when you feel pulled and guided to do something that is incredibly embarrassing and it feels like you're being crucified. A lot of these actions that you have to take in order to go through this purity process, in order to rid yourself of a lot of trauma that you have and a lot of the belief systems that you have, you're going to have to do some really scary things. For instance, I was led to go on Facebook Live and speak. And I knew that whatever I said had to be the truth. It had to be something that I believed about myself, which was my truth. And this goes into manifestation as well. So hopefully you'll be able to see clearly exactly how manifestation works with this, because it is so real. I felt like my belief system was my truth, and I had to get on live and tell my truth. And I wasn't sure exactly what I was supposed to say or what I was supposed to do, but I had an inkling. I knew it had something to do with parenting. I get on live. I'm so nervous. I wasn't done up. I just knew that it was something I needed to do. And I just asked the divine to be very gentle with me because I was terrified. And I wanted the divine to know that even though I was terrified, I wasn't being disobedient and I wasn't being bad in a sense. I wanted to have that understanding and establish that I wasn't as courageous as I wish I was. And I think that that was what I was also telling myself, that I wasn't yet as courageous as I wish that I could be, because I felt so terrified in that moment to do this simple task. It was very simple. Get on Facebook Live, something that I didn't do and I also looked down upon. So that was exposing another aspect of myself that I needed to look at, and possibly say something that was probably going to make me cry, something that I heavily judge other people for doing, because I felt like a lot of people use performative tears in order to get sympathy from people and do absolutely nothing but something negative with that, right? Getting people to do things for them when they can just get up and do it for themselves. Having that type of thought process and belief system behind what I was doing was also another thing that was adding a lot of weight to it. I had a lot of beliefs that were weighing me down, but even though I was being weighed down by my own mindset and my own beliefs, I still went through the process and did it. And I don't really remember what I said in the beginning, but I remember the gist of what I said and how it ended. And basically I was saying how I didn't believe that I was a good parent, that a lot of people believe that I was a good parent because I show up and I do all of these things, but I don't feel great about the job that I'm doing as a mother. It was interesting because I wasn't looking at the comments. I was just speaking from my spirit and I was just going. I didn't have a script. I didn't know what to say, but once I knew what to say, I started to spill all the beans. And then something in me told me to look down at the comments. And I saw so many people that I used to be friends with, people that I worked with, people that I didn't have a deep connection with, but they admired me from afar and I didn't even know, they were able to say, no, right, you're wrong. I've seen you with your son. I see how your son is. And I know that you don't feel how you think you should feel. You are still a great mom. And having that reassurance showed something to me. It showed me that everybody else isn't judging me as harshly as I judge myself. And the last comment that popped up was my mom. And I'm not even going to get into what she said, but it was really ugly. I think the last thing that she said was that I was stupid. And she said some really hurtful things. But her saying that, after getting all of that reassurance, didn't hold any weight at all. It was almost like it was a speck of dust. And in seeing her words, I realized that that was what I believed everybody thought about me. That was my belief system. Her fear of being honest and truthful and showing up in a way that looks like you're failing, how she attacks that's how I was attacking myself. I realized that I feel so much more powerful. And to think about how stressed out and anxious I was before I started that live, and then feeling how powerful and courageous I felt after. I overcame a huge obstacle that for someone else may not be a big deal, but it was a big deal for me. Allowing myself to be obedient over my ego is what set me free. God told me to jump, and baby, I was like, wait a minute, give me a minute. Let me get myself together first. I'm gonna jump, but just give me a second. But when I jumped, I didn't fall. I flew. My mother's judgment couldn't touch me anymore. And it no longer was my own judgment. I was allowing myself to free myself and love myself for who I am, and to know that I didn't have to be perfect in order to receive love. Nobody else is as harsh on me as I am on myself. That opened my eyes and cleared my vision and rewrote my understanding and belief system for me to go through the next process that I needed to go through. The journey is the thing that gives you the most gems, not the reward. You got to do the work. You have to open yourself up to the divine. You have to do the scary thing. You have to listen. And when you're being told to jump, you have to trust that everything is going to work out for you in the end. We don't realize how heavy other people's words weigh on us, and how we adopt those words and make them our own. In putting yourself out there and being vulnerable, your experience may not be as good as mine, but honestly, I feel like if you're led by the divine is not going to torture you. It's not going to be a torture. Her comment was the very last comment that came in after being reassured by so many people and feeling the love from so many people, and for people not to wonder why I was on the internet crying and bawling out and not looking my best, right? It also gave me faith, not just in myself, but in humanity. It helped me realize that everyone isn't evil. Everyone isn't bad. And I had to realize that I wasn't bad for even thinking those thoughts about myself and believing those thoughts about myself. You're not evil and you're not bad because you think you are. If you're doing crazy stuff, then babes, you gotta go and find a psychologist or something. You gotta find yourself a therapist or something. No, but in all actuality, you're not doing a horrible job like you think you are. You're not as horrible as you think you are. And your thoughts matter the most. So taking on someone else's negativity and making it your reality and your truth is what is manifesting and perpetuating this cycle that you feel like you can't escape, and you can't escape it because it's you. You are the reoccurring cycle. It's time for you to uproot those things so that you can access your divinity. And that is what gives you the soft life. That's what puts you in your femininity. That is healing. Being able to see yourself, accept yourself, and transform yourself is one of the best things that you could do, but it's also incredibly mature. Oftentimes, people say that they love the energy that they spend with themselves, but in all actuality, they love the fact that they're able to hide from the rest of the world. You have to get to know yourself. You have to honor the time that you spend with yourself in society, not just in your house or your couch. You have to grow out of that. There's a time to be in hermit mode. There's a time to recuperate when you've fought a good fight for yourself, for your dignity, for your boundaries, for your understanding. There's a time to rest. And then there's a time to get back out there and get back out there alone. That is something that I was able to do, and it became one of the biggest blessings I've ever had in my life. I had so many solo dates, and each date changed my life to the point that I remember a certain few very vividly, which was taking myself out to dinner for the first time, vacationing alone, and going to the movies alone. Those don't seem like a big deal to some, but to me, it was a huge deal. There was an immense amount of embarrassment and fear behind doing all of those things alone. And I also told myself that if I was going to do these things, I was going to go big or I was going to go home. So when I did my date, I didn't just do a coffee date or throw on some clothes and go out and get lunch or something like that. No. I got glammed up. I did my hair, I did my makeup, I put on that dress that I was saving for someone's son. I put on my fur and I went out to a really expensive restaurant that I really wanted to try. When you start to plan what you're going to do alone, something gets revealed. And what gets revealed is the fact that you've put your life on hold so that you could do life with someone. But in all actuality, you need to learn how to do life with self. You need to learn how to appreciate your life when you're alone. Not when you have your dog, not when you have your friends, not when you have your favorite cousin or family member, not when you have your man. You have to learn how to love self and show up in public with self. I kind of feel like this is when people are hiding the person that they're hunching on, right? Like they don't want to show them in pictures. They're kind of embarrassed to show the world who they're intimate with, right? And it's kind of like that. You're embarrassed to show the world you and how you love on you. And I remember when I got to the restaurant, I originally made the reservation for 2 because I wanted a table. I didn't want them to tell me that I had to sit at the bar, and I wasn't sure how restaurants work with that, right? But thinking about it, like, baby, I'm paying. You're going to give me a table. But this place was a high commodity. So I made a reservation for 2, and I was like, the party is still coming, whatever, when I checked in. And they sat me at this really cute small table. And behind me, it was a group of women. Eventually, they were like, oh my gosh, I would be so embarrassed if I got stood up. Loud enough where they know I can hear, right? And in any other instance, I probably would have felt embarrassed. I probably would have felt away. But I truly believe that because I started to put myself out there alone with the divine, for instance, like with the Facebook Live situation, I started to have this sort of strength that I wasn't accustomed to, because the strength wasn't overt, it wasn't aggressive, it wasn't abrasive, it was very calming, it was spacious. I was able to know they had no idea what was going on. They didn't know that I wasn't waiting on anyone. And I don't feel bad about being alone. I actually like myself, and I like the fact that I brought my laptop so I can do some work and try all of the food that I wanted to try and look cute and look good. That felt good to me. So to be in that space and hearing their conversation revolving around me, I didn't feel away and they couldn't bring me down. What that moment showed me, and I think it was the first time that it was really loud, was the misery of others. Finally, I was able to see the projection of what others do to people to try to make them conform into societal norms. They caught my attention by talking about me. But then, with that attention, I started to hear subtleties and nuances in their conversation that these women actually didn't really like each other. They were all just giving updates on their life, but there was no actual connection with each other. And I was able to see it so clearly because I had a really good connection with myself and the divine. And because I was feeling so good and having this good energy and not slouching and trying to hide and hoping that no one sees me alone, I was proud to be alone. It gave me some type of strength that is rare in women these days. Towards the end of my meal, towards the end of my date with myself, that was incredible. Because they set me by the window, there were multiple men that were looking at me through the window. They would stop almost in their tracks and see me. And I was getting the energy that to them I was stunning. And while I did put that thing on, my outfit was cute, girl, I knew that it wasn't my outfit. I knew it was my energy. My energy was stopping them in their tracks because I was confident. The ease of sitting in my own comfort and knowing that I was whole and full, that gives a certain essence to other people. To some women that don't have it, they attack. But to men that desire it, they freeze. One of the men even came into the restaurant and he wasn't sure if I was there alone. He wasn't sure if I was comfortable with him addressing me. And I can kind of feel that because he was kind of looking around and he kind of wanted to get a table and maybe ask him if I was alone. But I love the fact that my energy was so full and it filled up the room so much that I was unattainable. I was just in so much ease and comfort. How can you compete with that? As another person, seeing someone so comfortable and so at ease and so at peace, you almost don't want to disturb it. It's almost like watching someone meditate or pray. You don't want to disturb them in that process. That was the energy that I was sitting in, and that is hell of attractive. I was proud of myself. I was proud that I didn't need to make any phone calls to fill this space and occupy my time. I was able to sit with myself and really enjoy my own energy, enjoy the thoughts about the ambiance and the cuisine and, just being happy that I was able to explore this avenue and not have to wait on someone else to take me there to explore it. I was able to explore it by myself. And the same energy came when I went on my solo vacation to the Virgin Islands. That was such a beautiful experience, but it was a learning experience as well. What it revealed to me was I spent a lot of time, money, and energy going on vacations with other people and conforming to what they had going on and called it being easygoing. When in all actuality, sometimes I didn't want to go on an excursion or I didn't want to just do touristy stuff. I wanted to adventure and I wanted to relax and I wanted to do what I wanted to do on my own time. And it wasn't until I was able to do that that I realized that going to the Virgin Islands for 9 days alone, especially during the pandemic, it made me step so far out of my comfort zone that I almost didn't know who I was. I couldn't recognize myself, and it was no way that I was going to be able to fit into who I used to be. Island hopping and trying different foods and walking, taking public transportation, not having someone in my ear saying, "Oh, that's not safe. You can't do that." And I heard this, and, not being projected upon. Being able to spend an entire day in my room and sitting on Clubhouse and just talking and hearing people say, "Wow, you sound so peaceful. You sound at ease. Like your voice just makes me want to relax. I don't know. You bring some type of peace and tranquility to this conversation." I love that. I love the fact that I was able to do what I wanted to do on my time and not feel that I was being complicated for doing what I wanted to do or separate from the group or whatever. I was able to give myself the space and time to show up the way I wanted to show up every day. And that refueled something in me that I didn't know that I had. Now I know how I want to operate on vacation, and I know when I'm performing or I know when I'm making myself small because I have something to compare it to. At this point in time in my life, I was doing things that I admired for other people that just say, "You know what, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go to another country and I'm going to make it and I'm going to figure it out." Now I have that same type of courage because I'm able to walk and do different things and try different foods and not have people put their impressions on me and learn who I am in these different settings. And knowing self is one of the most fulfilling things that you could do. It's something that brings out a certain light and strength in you that you're not able to see. It's not until you live the experience and you have the realization and it burrows itself into wisdom in your inner body is when it all becomes clear. You have to do the thing that's terrifying. You have to put yourself in situations where you know what you want and you know when you're enough and you know when you're not too much, and it's not performative. It's not reactionary. It's just inner peace and inner knowing, inner being. The solo movie date. Again, I got dressed up to go to the movies for my birthday this particular year, and my birthday is February 11th. So Valentine's Day is always trailing my birthday. In this particular year, my birthday was in the middle of the week, and I believe Valentine's Day was that weekend. And the movie that came out that year was The Photograph. And for some reason, I really wanted to see it. It was a Black film. It had Issa Rae in it, Lakeith, And I just wanted to see what it was about. And I was terrified booking my ticket because I was like, oh my goodness, it's a pandemic. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe nobody will be there. But what if people are there and I'm there by myself? Am I going to have to play it off? And it just started to show how many times I would come up with ways to try to ease embarrassment and just existing. I'm just existing. What is so embarrassing about that? And I thought to myself, why do I hold so much weight of what other people are thinking about me? And I never seen this part of myself before because I always played it safe. I always felt like I never cared about what people thought about me, and it was because I was always okay with what I was doing. But the second that I was doing something outside of my comfort zone, something that I couldn't control, something that I couldn't predict, something that I couldn't map out, that is when all of a sudden I just cared about what everybody was thinking. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can't imagine always living my life like this every single day with just simple tasks. This is a simple thing that I really want to do for my birthday. Nobody else knows it's my birthday. Who cares that I don't have a partner to go see this romantic comedy or this romantic movie with on Valentine's Day? Who cares? This is my life. I'm living, I'm existing. And when I got there, there were maybe 2 or 3 couples in the movie theater, and all of a sudden that fear started to rush up again. And I was like, Ra, just relax. You're here to watch the movie. It's not like you're out here trying to be a gladiator or anything, okay? Just sit down and enjoy the film. And in that process, I realized that I was always on edge. I was always trying to show up as my best self when I was in the presence of other people. Sometimes I wouldn't cry in a movie theater because someone was right there and I didn't want them to see me crying or wiping my tears. I didn't want to be judged. And I didn't laugh at parts that I knew that I thought was hilarious and that other people may not get, and just going through that experience, I said, wow, I'm really freeing myself from all of this. Now I'm not going to care. And even if somebody makes a comment, that just says more about them than it does about me. And sometimes I won't even read into what it says about them because I don't care. I love the time that I spent with myself. I didn't squander that time period of being single because in being single, I wasn't alone. I was full. I finally enjoyed showing up for myself, by myself, and I was okay with that. I didn't feel like I was missing an aspect of myself and it just needed to be another person there sharing this moment with me. And while I had relationships prior and I've been single prior, it was always friends occupying that time or occupying that space and occupying my mental state. And now it was just me, and I didn't feel alone. I felt relieved and free. You put a lot of weight in always trying to set reservations for 2 when a reservation for 1 is more than enough. You're already full. You're already whole. You just don't know it because you've never given yourself the opportunity to go out there and see that. You have to show up with you, by you, without feeling halved or empty or not enough or not good enough. And if you don't give yourself that opportunity, then you'll never know what that feels like. That is how you build real softness, but with inner strength. It doesn't have to be reactionary. It doesn't have to be that you're standing up for yourself. It could just simply be that you're existing with yourself, but not feeling lonely, that you are living your life to the fullest, that you're proud of living your life, that you have stories about how you explored life alone. If you ask me, softness is when you're comfortable, when you're not clenching your jaw, you're not tightening your muscles, when you're not overthinking, when you're not worrying, when you're not embarrassed, when you release all of the societal impressions from yourself, when you're able to just allow yourself to exist and to be happy and to be sad and to comfort yourself and just admire who you are and who you've been thus far, and being excited for who you're going to be in the future, because you're going to allow yourself to be that person in the future. You're not going to get in your own way of exploring and discovering different aspects of yourself. That curiosity, that light, that excitement, that is attractive, and you can't fake that. You can't fake softness. You can't fake ease. You can't fake peace. It's either there or it's not. So this is a time to discover, to give yourself the courage to just discover. It's okay to feel fear. It's okay to feel embarrassment before you even get there. You don't have to heal the right way. You just heal in a real way. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to always feel aligned. It won't always feel aligned because you're going against the self that made you feel like you weren't enough and you weren't worthy. The part of yourself that honestly makes you hate who you are, makes you want to change your features, makes you want to change how you show up in the world. You should never let anybody grind you down. You are good the way you are. You shape you and your light and your beauty by discovering who you are. That is groundwork. That is purpose, not a rebrand. You are molding yourself into a beautiful shape and figure that you deem is beautiful. The most powerful thing that you can do is to believe in yourself and to free yourself. That is the beauty within. That is what outshines whatever the social construct of beauty is. People can't deny a great personality. They can't deny that someone who has the essence of loving themselves, having boundaries, knowing when to speak, knowing when not to speak, knowing when to take action, knowing when to show up, having a decisive understanding of their own path, following the beat of their own drum, being in alignment with the divine, and to be able to be successful at that. Like, you're winning, okay? It's not a fairy tale. It sounds like it. It sounds all good. But like I said in the beginning, the beginning road can be tumultuous. But once you clear out that flood, once you clean up the debris, you'll start to see you shine. Let me remind you, you don't tap into your femininity because you bought a silk robe. You tap in when you finally feel safe being you. How many times have you been performative? How many times have you been a people pleaser? How many times have you put others in front of yourself? Now it's time to do something different. Now it's time to be courageous. Now it's time to take your power back. Now it's time to reevaluate your beliefs and reframe them. Now it's time to show up as your authentic version. Now I know who I am. I met my femininity when I lost the version of who I thought I was. Because who I thought I was what other people were telling me I was, what other people critiqued. I allowed other people to chisel and break me down into a figure that I wasn't happy with. And when I finally redesigned myself, truly, authentically, energetically, internally, that's when I was my most powerful. That's when I was my most feminine. Now I can make a reservation for one and smile the whole time. I'm excited, vibrant. Now I can move without fear and not correct other people's perceptions. This is womanhood. This is softness. This is divinity. I don't have to prove who I am. I've met her already, and she's worth protecting. If you want to get to this point, just think about this. How you reframe your reality is how you trick yourself into believing it. Whether it's a good trick or a bad trick, it entirely depends on the outcome and how you mentally reframe that outcome's success. I really enjoyed unraveling for you all and sharing my story with you guys and showing you how healing actually leads directly into your femininity. Now, there are some other steps that you need to do that we will discuss, but overall, this is that one big first step. Being courageous, learning how to allow yourself to feel, not always needing the answers, not always needing to show up perfect, not feeling like you need to conform into an image that you believe society will accept. If you enjoyed this video, definitely do me a huge favor. Like, share, comment, let me know how you're feeling, and definitely subscribe so that you'll be able to see all the other videos that come out in the future. Thank you so much for sharing your time and energy with me. That's my time. I'll see you later. Peace, love, and a little bit of spice. Mwah.